Erin, you're amazing. When I turned around, I saw her with tears in her eyes. I'm sorry for leaving you alone, Nina. What are you saying? You did great. She silently shook her head, leaned into my back, and gently held me. My name is Erin Kent. I just turned 30 this year. I work as a surgeon at a metropolitan hospital. I'm still pretty new to the profession. When it comes to treatments, I feel there's still a lot I need to learn. So, along with treating my own patients, I take every chance I get to observe surgeries led by veteran doctors. Especially in surgery, experience speaks volumes. It's no exaggeration to say that what I learn from this hands-on experience will shape my future as a surgeon. It's demanding, but necessary if I want to become fully qualified soon. One day, as I was busy with this routine, an unexpected opportunity came my way. I was summoned by the head of surgery, Kevin, and stepped into his office. You wanted to see me? Yes. Do you have a moment now? Yes, how can I assist you? Kevin gestured for me to take a seat on the couch. Kevin looked at me intently and suddenly began to speak. You're still single, right? Yes, and I have no plans for marriage either. Good to know. Actually, there's something I wanted to ask you about. Huh? Was Kevin about to propose an arranged marriage? I'm nowhere near ready for that kind of thing. Once I get more settled in my work, maybe then I'll think about starting a family. Luckily or unluckily, I don't even have any prospects for romance right now. If it's an arranged marriage, I'll politely turn it down. Kevin, I'm still just a novice. Right now, I'm fully focused on learning the ropes at work. That's not true. You're doing great. I have faith in you and in what's ahead. What's ahead? What is Kevin trying to tell me? It doesn't sound like a marriage proposal after all. Is this about work? Is he about to assign me something? If it's work-related, I'll gladly take it on. And if he trusts me, that makes it even better. Is this about work? If so, I'll give it my all. What kind of work is it? I'm glad to hear that. Honestly, you're the only one I can ask. Everyone else has a family. You're the one who could move without much burden. Move? Am I being assigned to another hospital? That's fine with me. As long as there's a good environment to learn. Don't worry. I can work anywhere. So, which hospital would I be going to? Kevin paused, staying silent for a moment. Wait, what's going on? Why is he suddenly quiet? Is it somewhere he can't easily mention? Could it be a remote area? Sure, a quieter place might offer a better environment for focused study, but it could also mean limited exposure to cutting-edge medicine. Is there something tying you here, something you can't leave behind? No, not particularly. This is Tokyo, so I could always come back, right? Well, you might not be able to come back easily. Would you still be all right with that? Why not? I wondered. We're talking about Tokyo, aren't we? Kevin, it's fine. No need to worry. I'm up for it. Well, if you're that confident, then I'll entrust this to you. I'm happy to hear it. So, where am I going? Kevin paused briefly before telling me the place. Hachijo Island. What? It was the last place I expected. That single word from Kevin filled my mind. Oh, right, Hachijo Island is technically part of Tokyo. So that's where I'll be sent. There's a vacancy for a physician at Hachijo Hospital. They need a doctor from our hospital to work in collaboration. With someone stationed there, the locals could receive prompt care even in emergencies. You'd be greatly valued by the island residents, and it'd boost your confidence. It's not a bad deal, right? I understood the gist of what Kevin was saying, but I couldn't completely hide my shock. Once I go to the island, I really won't be able to come back to Tokyo. It would likely mean living on the island permanently. I was born and raised in Tokyo. I've fully settled into my current lifestyle here. Can I really manage to live on an island? Anxiety flooded my mind. Memories from childhood came rushing back. My closest friends and my parents, who were still alive and well. I wouldn't see them for a long time. At that moment, I couldn't give him an answer. Kevin, please give me some time. I'll definitely give you my decision soon. Alright, take your time. I have high hopes for you. I took the matter home with me and decided to give it serious thought. Moving there would mean a complete change in my life. Everything about my current lifestyle would disappear. It would mean being prepared to let go of everything connected to my life here. But even more than that, there was something else that worried me. The truth is, I'm quite shy. I can't easily open up to people I've just met. I just can't help but hold myself back. If I go to the island, I might not be able to connect with the locals. That would be fatal. I can't live on an island. Living on the island means I'd have to cooperate with the community, or life there just wouldn't work. The more I thought about it, the more impossible it felt. I want to keep learning medicine within my current life. That's what I felt would make me happy. Having reached this conclusion, I went to work the next day. Kevin called me in, and I went back to his office. I was confident in my decision and felt no regrets. So, did you think it over? Yes, and thank you for the opportunity, but... What? You're not going to take it? I'm sorry. I feel I'm still not capable enough. I can't meet your expectations. Are you feeling uncertain about something? Yes. To be honest, I'm shy and probably wouldn't fit in well there. So, it's a personality thing? Kevin lowered his gaze and stayed silent for a moment. It seemed like he was deep in thought. No matter what he said, I knew I wouldn't change my decision. I felt no need to search for other words. But his next words took me by surprise. That shy personality of yours won't work anywhere, island or not. Being a doctor means putting yourself in your patient's shoes. It's about getting them to open up. If you're turning this down for that reason, then maybe you should reconsider being a doctor altogether. That's what I think. I was speechless at his blunt words. It felt harsh. Kevin's expression had grown a bit stern. If you're serious about becoming a good doctor, you'll need to change that part of yourself. Can you do that? This opportunity is a chance to test that. What do you say? Give it a shot. I'd like to see you grow through this experience. You'd only be there for a few years, and it would be a great place to hone your skills. Are you saying that I could grow if I go to the island, Kevin? I'm not saying that's all there is to it. I'm just saying it's a valuable opportunity. Going to the island would mean putting aside your shyness. It's that kind of place. Think of this as a trial for yourself, one that will prepare you for future success as a doctor. Going to the island was a test of my commitment and loyalty as a doctor. I hesitated again. If I turned down this offer, would I lose Kevin's trust in the future? That's what it felt like. Even if it meant sacrificing my current life, should I carry Kevin's expectations with me? And right there, I reversed my decision. Kevin understood. I think you're absolutely right. I'll go to the island. Thank you for giving me such a valuable opportunity. Thank you. I'm grateful you've decided to take this on. I trust you. I approached you because I knew you could do it. I might come to regret changing my decision on the spot. But now, it's all or nothing. No one knows what the future holds. And so, the day arrived for my journey to the island. I told my parents I wouldn't be back for a while. On the boat, I watched the mainland slowly disappear. A new chapter of my life was about to begin. The island was farther away than I'd thought. It felt like I'd been on the boat for over 10 hours. When I finally stepped onto the island, a hospital staff member was there to greet me. After introductions, they took me straight to the hospital. From now on, this would be my home. I walked toward the hospital, taking in the unfamiliar scenery around me. As soon as I arrived, I was called into the director's office. They probably wanted to go over the details of my work here. When I stepped into the office, though, I was surprised to see Director Trevor looking apologetic. I had expected a warm welcome. Did he think I was unhappy to be here? So, I forced a smile, walked up to him, and greeted him cheerfully. I'm looking forward to working here. Thank you for having me. Yet, Trevor still wore a gloomy expression. Is something wrong? I couldn't help but ask. There was definitely something off about his demeanor. After a moment, Trevor finally began to speak, his voice heavy. It's true our hospital had a vacancy for a resident physician, but out of nowhere, Trevor started saying something strange. I had come here to fill that vacancy. But then he said something I couldn't believe. I'm sorry to ask this on such short notice, but would you consider going to Chi-Chi Island? Wait, Chi-Chi Island? I was taken aback by the sudden proposal. I had only accepted this assignment because it was on Hachijo Island. Chi-Chi Island is even farther from the mainland. Is this even happening? This isn't something you bring up right after I arrive on the island. What do you mean? Trevor looked uncomfortable as he started to explain. Actually, by the time you accepted the position, a local doctor agreed to take on the role here. If there was someone else available, why didn't you just ask them in the first place? Well, he had his own reasons and initially couldn't commit. As a local, he knows the residents well, and we wanted him here. But since you've already come, it turns out the clinic on Chi-Chi Island is also in need of a physician. I'm sorry, but could I ask you to go there? Kevin from the main hospital has already approved it. I understood what Trevor was saying. Technically, I had only just arrived, not yet fully settled in. But to suddenly be sent from Hachijo Island to Chi-Chi Island, it was too much to process. When I thought about it, it felt unfair. My preferences hadn't been considered at all, and I couldn't accept this. It felt like I was being passed around, and I didn't like it. I'm sorry, but in that case, I'll return to the main hospital. No one told me about Chi-Chi Island. I'll continue working in my original environment. Please, could you reconsider? The clinic really needs help. No, this is too much. Coming here already took commitment, and now you're asking me to go even farther, to Chi-Chi Island. Didn't you come here with the understanding that you wouldn't be returning? Island doctors dedicate themselves to community medicine, often with the intent of staying for life. Don't you have that kind of spirit? If not, why did you pursue a position as an island doctor? That wasn't my reason for coming here. I was simply following the main hospital's directive. But then Trevor said something unbelievable. I was stunned. I'm sorry, but I've already sent word to the clinic on Chi-Chi Island that you'll be coming. What? It was already decided that I'd be sent to Chi-Chi Island. That's the situation. I apologize. I had no choice but to go to Chi-Chi Island. There was nothing I could do. I had no choice but to accept it. It's such a tough situation. To get to Chi-Chi Island, I had to go back to Tokyo and then head out from there. Once I arrived on the island, someone from the clinic came to pick me up. They welcomed me, but I couldn't manage to smile back. The director, Kyle, was a gentleman. He explained my future work responsibilities carefully. Everyone at the clinic was kind and welcoming. Feeling the warmth of their hospitality, I felt a bit relieved. My living quarters were prepared, though they were modest, and thus began my new life here. The clinic on Chi-Chi Island also included a care facility for the elderly. Though I was a surgeon, I couldn't stick strictly to my specialty. That's just how it goes with island medicine. I felt a little sad about it, but I made up my mind. Maybe this is just fate taking me in a new direction. With the support of the locals, I began my new life here. The island has a small grocery store. There's a regular ferry service, so getting supplies isn't a problem. It's surprisingly convenient. However, there are numbered 24-hour convenience stores. Since I was used to late-night shopping, I had to be mindful of that. That day, I was out shopping for groceries. While holding some vegetables, I heard a voice behind me. "Oh, are you the new doctor?" I was startled by the sudden greeting but turned to see a kind-looking woman around my age. I'm shy by nature. So, with people I meet for the first time, words don't come easily. I nodded quietly, and she smiled. "Nice to meet you. It must be tough moving from the mainland all of a sudden, right? If there's anything you're unsure about, just ask me. I'd be happy to help." She spoke warmly, her smile open and friendly. I couldn't reply then, but I thought maybe I'd start a conversation next time we met. After all, I came to the island to overcome my shyness. As luck would have it, I ran into her again the next day. When I saw her, I took the initiative to say hello. "We meet again. Do you come to the store often?" She turned around, surprised at my sudden greeting. "Oh, you startled me. I didn't expect Dr. Kent to speak up first. Is there something you need help with? Just ask." "No, sorry about yesterday. You spoke to me, but I didn't say anything." "Oh, so you're just a quiet type, Dr. Kent." "I'm the chatty one, sorry about that." She laughed, completely unbothered. "I'm actually pretty shy. I have trouble talking with people." "Really? But once I feel comfortable, I can talk just fine. With you, I feel like I can open up." "Well, that makes me happy. In that case, let's chat as much as we want." I found her constant smile and cheerful personality charming. It felt like she might be someone who would support me here. I appreciated her presence more and more. We exchanged names formally this time and started calling each other by our first names. "Wait, Nina, are you single?" "Yes. I'm not exactly popular, you know." "That's hard to believe, you're quite charming, Nina." Dr. Kent, saying things like that. Don't expect anything in return for just flattering me. Spending time with her became a soothing escape from the unfamiliarity of my work here. She looked forward to seeing me too. Every time she smiled at me, I couldn't help but feel overjoyed. Eventually, she even shared her home address with me. After work, I would head straight to her house. Almost every evening, she prepared dinner for me. It became the highlight of my day. Nina, thank you so much. Honestly, I look forward to these dinners every day. I enjoy cooking for you, Dr. Kent. Seeing you happy makes me happy too. I owe you so much. I'll make it up to you one day, I promise. You're being too formal. Please don't take away my joy, Dr. Kent. Just keep coming over every evening, okay? I'll be waiting for you. She was truly happy to spend time with me, too. Eventually, we started dating. One day, as usual, I went to her place after work. But that evening, she didn't seem herself. Her usual smile was missing. Was she feeling unwell? I grew concerned and decided to check on her. Is something wrong? Ha! I was worried seeing her so distracted. Something happened, didn't it? No, not really. Something was definitely off. Her usual responses weren't like this. You don't have to hide it. Is there something you can't tell me? Aaron, I'm trying to handle it on my own. Handle it? Something was definitely up. I also noticed that she didn't call me Dr. Kent. It's okay. Please, tell me. After some persistence, she finally gave in and began to speak. Aaron, I talked to my parents. About what? I told them I wanted to marry someone. What? She had someone she wanted to marry? I couldn't hide my shock. Who? Someone from the island? She gave me a puzzled look. As if to say, what are you talking about? Silly. I meant you, Aaron. Wait, what? This was so sudden. Marriage? Just like that? Granted, it wasn't out of the question for us to consider it. But I wasn't prepared for this. I did want to be with her forever, though. I was overjoyed, yet, why did she seem so down about it? She continued, her voice tinged with sadness. There are rumors on the island. People are saying I'm an unmarried woman bringing a man into my life carelessly, and worse, that he's an outsider. I told them that I'm serious about you, and that we're considering marriage. But then, they only opposed it more. They asked if I was really going to marry someone from outside the island. This place is, well, it's insular. The people here highly value island relationships and tight bonds within the community, even between families. That's actually why I chose to live on my own. I expected some opposition, though. So, you brought up marriage with me for that reason? She nodded. They believe in slowly getting to know each other, connecting families, and building ties. I know that's not unique to the island, but here, it's especially important. They probably wouldn't accept you since you came here alone from the outside. But I'll keep trying because I want to be with you, Aaron. She looked at me with a sorrowful expression. So, she'd been thinking that deeply about it. Still, she seemed troubled. Actually, she said, hesitating, after that, a marriage proposal was brought up for me. It's from someone on the island. A proposal? Yes. My parents are probably pushing for it to avoid me marrying an outsider. So, I had a meeting with him recently. The guy liked me. He wants to start a relationship with marriage in mind. But I'm not interested at all. I already have you, Aaron. If it's not you, I don't want anyone else. I see, so that's what happened. I was suddenly overwhelmed with a deep sense of sadness. Have you seen him since then? No, not at all. He's tried to reach out, but I turned him down, saying I'm already in love with someone. But he's persistent. saying there's no point in being with someone who doesn't have my family's blessing. Just today, he called again, asking to meet soon. It's exhausting. She'd been struggling with this all on her own, keeping it hidden from me. I was glad she finally opened up. I truly felt that from the bottom of my heart. It felt like our hearts were aligned. Thank you for telling me. I want to marry you, Nina. I believe the time will come when our marriage is accepted. Really? How can you be so sure? I'm not. What matters is that we both keep believing in it. As long as we hold on to that, I'm certain our fate will open up before us. Let's trust in that. She nodded at my unfounded optimism. Yes, I'll keep trusting in you, Aaron. I'll keep turning him down. As long as you're by my side, I'll be all right. She smiled brightly at me. I couldn't help but feel a deep love for her. I have to do something for her. I have to give it my all for her sake. As summer arrived, the island prepared for its annual event. It was the Summer Festival. There are performances of dances such as South Seas Dance and Bond Dance. Live concerts and outdoor movie screenings are also held. The highlight of the event was the fireworks display. Both of us were eagerly looking forward to it. Nina wanted it to be just the two of us. A little date. I gladly accepted. On the day of the festival, she appeared before me in a dress. Her beauty left me speechless. Seeing me stunned, she spun around with a little pose. Aaron, how do I look in my dress? You look beautiful. I'm honestly blown away. You could wear that all the time, and I'd be thrilled. Oh, come on. I'm glad you like it. She smiled joyfully and linked her arm with mine. We wandered around the island together. But of course, we were most excited about the fireworks. At the summer festival, the fireworks display lights up the coastline, creating a romantic backdrop. It's the perfect setting for a date. She was as excited as I was to see the fireworks together. When we arrived at the venue, there was an unexpected crowd. Perhaps it was because of the holiday season, but there were more tourists than usual. Wait, there are so many people. Yes, this fireworks show is pretty famous. We get a lot of tourists around this time. So that was it, even on Chi-Chi Island tourism brought in quite a crowd. That's when it happened. A man was approaching us. From his expression, I sensed something was off. I looked at her and saw her face tighten with apprehension. This must be Nathan, her arranged marriage partner. What are you doing here? And who's this guy? He asked bluntly, eyeing me suspiciously. She instinctively clung to my arm. This is my boyfriend. Boyfriend? Are you kidding? We had an arranged meeting, remember? But I love him. And I've been telling you I can't be with you. Yeah, like I'm just going to believe that. We're getting married. The man continued to press her aggressively. I'm sorry, but she's uncomfortable with this. We're in a relationship, so could you please let it go? And who the hell are you? Just some outsider doctor, right? Don't go stealing our women. She might be from the island, but she's her own person. And I love her, too. Enough with this nonsense. Her parents approve of me, and it's a problem if you're just interfering. Then, he grabbed her arm forcefully, trying to pull her away. I stepped between them. Hey, what are you doing? Can't you see she doesn't want this? Don't you think this is wrong? You have no right to tell me what's right, outsider. Don't stick your nose where it doesn't belong. She clung to my arm, resisting his attempts to take her. Suddenly, the sound of screeching brakes and a loud crash filled the air. Ah! Someone, help! Shortly after that, I heard a woman scream. I sensed that something was seriously wrong. An accident. Nina, stay here. I'll be right back. Leaving her behind, I ran toward the sound. Thick smoke was rising from a car, and several people were lying injured on the ground. Had a car plowed into the crowd? I didn't understand exactly what was happening. In any case, I had to help the person who had collapsed. I immediately called the clinic to relay the situation, directing them to prepare the necessary supplies. There were more injured people than I'd expected. I called out to event staff and bystanders to assist with the response. Within minutes, Kyle and several nurses arrived at the scene. One by one, I administered first aid to each patient. I conducted triage, and for those critically injured, I requested emergency air transport through the self-defense forces. The hospital they'd be transferred to was the one where I'd worked before. I called Kevin, the head of surgery, to brief him directly. They prepared to receive the patients. As the helicopter began to carry the injured away, we finally took a breath. Who knows how much time had passed? Then, it hit me, I suddenly remembered her. I'd rushed to the scene without thinking, but what happened to her after I left? Had she been taken away by him after all? Just as I was about to run off to look for her, I heard a woman's voice from behind me. Aaron, you were amazing. I turned around and saw her, tears welling up in her eyes. I'm sorry for leaving you, Nina. What are you talking about? You did a great job. She shook her head silently, then leaned into me and hugged me gently. I almost got taken away, but I stomped on his foot as hard as I could and followed you. She had protected herself. She was strong. I fell for her all over again. This was the kind of person she was, that's why I loved her. I looked at her, relieved and filled with admiration. Seeing her tear-streaked face, I felt the need to express what had built up inside me. Nina, what is it? The thought of losing you nearly broke me. If your parents want you to marry a local, then I'll stay on this island for good. Please, stay with me. I love you. Will you marry me? With even more tears in her eyes, she nodded. Yes. I'm so happy. As for the people injured in the accident, they were all locals. Fortunately, none of them lost their lives. My actions became the talk of the island. Many islanders crowded into the clinic. Along with words of appreciation, they brought me offerings of fresh produce and seafood. They were all overjoyed, I think. I was glad to finally feel accepted by them. Then I went to her parents' home to formally ask for her hand in marriage. Nervously, I pressed the intercom, and she greeted me at the door with a smile. Welcome, Aaron. When I was shown into the living room, her parents were seated side by side, smiling at me. We're glad you came. Thank you for always looking after Nina. Thank you for taking the time to see me. I actually have something I'd like to discuss with you. Before that, there's something I owe you an apology for. I had misunderstood you. I thought you were a man who might lead our unmarried daughter astray. But I've heard the reports. You care for your patients at the clinic, and you saved the injured at the recent fireworks accident. I'm just a doctor. I only did what I could. No need to be humble. A man like you, who looks after our Nina. Yes. I'm here to ask for your blessing to marry Nina. From that point on, things went just as Nina had predicted. Having heard the positive feedback from the islanders, her parents softened their stance and gave us their blessing. We celebrated our wedding on the island, surrounded by the community. We're in love. Now, and for always. I'm dedicating my life to Chi Chi Island. Though I once resented Kevin and Trevor for sending me here, that decision led me to her. It was fate. That's how I've come to see it. I'm happy. And that's the answer to everything. Nina, thank you for this happiness. I'll treasure you for the rest of my life. Yes, and I'll treasure you forever too. I wrapped my arms around her. I felt her warmth close to me. Go buy coffee for everyone. Rachel, the head of the design department, pulls some coins out of her pocket and tosses them at me. They're a bunch of $1 coins. It's not enough to cover coffee for everyone here, but I guess that doesn't really matter to her. She just wanted to give me a hard time. You're struggling with money, right? Go ahead and take a few if you need. Consider it charity from someone well off. The moment she says that, the entire room of employees starts to tremble. That's rude, Rachel. Huh? What's rude about it? Noah, a fresh hire, speaks up to her, looking pale as a ghost. That man is the chairman. He runs the entire group of companies, including the one we work for. It can't be. I know for a fact he's just poor. Little does Rachel know she's about to walk right into my trap and find herself in a world of trouble. My name is Aaron Kirk. I'm a 48-year-old guy who looks forward to an annual overseas trip every year. I also have a beautiful wife and 6 kids. My kids range in age from 10 years to just a few months old. They're all incredibly lively, and every time I get home, I get reports like these. Aaron, the little ones were fighting today. They're just overflowing with energy. You'll have to play with them on the weekend. I'm sure they'll calm down a bit if you go all out. Dad. I went grocery shopping with Mom today, but we didn't get rice because it was way too heavy. I carried 2 bags. But that's barely enough for us, right? Could you drive us to the store this weekend? I'm glad they're growing up strong and healthy, but handling so many kids comes with its own challenges. Fortunately, I've got a good amount of stamina for my age, so I'm still able to keep up with my kids, for now. Still, I worry a bit about the day when I get older, and my energy starts to wane. I can only hope they'll mellow out a bit by then. For now, I need to keep providing for my family of 8, which keeps me busy every day. On top of that, I can't let my guard down at work since I hold the responsible position of chairman of the company group. Recently, I've been blending in with the general employees more often to make sure no internal issues go unnoticed, so I'm feeling a bit worn out. Some employees who recognize me even say, "Mr. Kirk, you look a bit tired, so I'm planning to schedule a break soon." But I have no regrets about having a big family. Growing up, my parents both worked, and I spent a lot of time feeling lonely. Aaron, you're such a good boy for staying home quietly. You're a big help. Exactly. We're able to work because you're not a troublemaker, Aaron. They never realized how lonely I felt inside, even though they said things like this all the time. Of course, expanding a family without a plan is not ideal, so I waited until I was financially stable before starting one. I didn't get married until I had a steady income from the business I started in my 20s. When I met the right person in my 30s, I made sure we talked about our future plans, and then I proposed like this. I spent a lot of time feeling lonely growing up, so I've always dreamed of having a big family. I don't mean right away, but if that's okay with you, will you marry me? I'd love that. I've always wanted a big family too. Let's build a lively home together. From that point on, we worked hard together. The business grew steadily, and by my mid-30s, we were financially secure and blessed with 6 kids. Every one of my children is precious to me, and just having them born as our kids fills me with joy. I feel like I could tackle any kind of work as long as it's for their sake. In early September, with the air gradually cooling and the usual lively morning noises from my kids, I left home after my wife handed me a lunchbox. As I drove to my job at the furniture manufacturing company, I could feel the season beginning to change. That's because decorations around the company that bring a sense of fall have been increasing. Paper leaves are taped to the windows, and acorn ornaments are placed on the tables in the break room. Even though the office is a place to work, focusing only on tasks can wear people down. I truly appreciate the employees who take the time to create these little touches. Passing by a hallway window, I glanced at the paper leaves carefully crafted and stuck to the glass. The meticulous work showed the creator's diligence and attention to detail. Looking further down the hall, I saw a young man putting up the last decoration on a window. I approached him afterward. "Thanks for your hard work this morning. You've got a real knack for making these decorations." He turned to me with a surprised expression. "Thank you, Mr. Kirk. Hearing that from you makes me happy." He seemed nervous and apparently knew I was the chairman. He should be one of the employees who joined the company this year. His name is Noah. He's in his 20s, and I heard from a close interviewer that he made quite a good impression during the interview. I recalled that he was juggling multiple part-time jobs to support his large family, which made him more memorable than other new hires. "I heard a bit about you from the interview team. I understand you've got quite a large family? Isn't that tough?" "Sure, it can be challenging, but there are just as many fun times, so it balances out." Noah responded with a shy smile, scratching his head. He didn't look like he was pretending, which made me smile in return. "I also heard you're the eldest, so I assume you're the one helping to look after your younger siblings?" "Yes, that's true. But I enjoy being around kids, and it's fun to watch them grow. Besides, the neighbors are there to help when things get rough." "Good to hear. People who grow up in large families often have little personal time and may deal with stress. So I was relieved to see he didn't feel burdened by his family situation. After we exchanged a few words about our family lives, I felt we had connected a bit and decided to ask him about work. "How's work going?" "I heard you were assigned to the design department." "Well, honestly, I'm not performing too well. I'm not much of an asset yet." "Is that so?" "These decorations look quite detailed and well made to me. I hope you'll get a chance to try different tasks around here." As I studied the decorations on the window, I genuinely admired his work. I don't know much about design, but these decorations seemed meticulously crafted. My boss says I'm 100 years too early to be trusted with real tasks. I suppose I still have a long way to go. Noah slumped his shoulders, looking downcast. Since I'm no expert in his field, I avoided giving specific advice and offered a simple encouragement. "I've heard you're a dedicated employee. If you keep up your efforts, I'm sure you'll be recognized in time." "Thank you." After patting him on the shoulder with a smile, I moved on only to hear someone shouting moments later. "Noah! How long are you going to waste time on that nonsense? There's plenty of work to do, so get back to the office. This is why you're so useless. Poor people like you really are hopeless. Sorry, Rachel. I'll be right there." I just rounded a corner, so I couldn't see who was speaking. Feeling curious, I retraced my steps a bit, but by the time I looked around the corner, no one was there. A few hours later, as I worked in my office, I noticed it was already past lunchtime, so I decided to take a break. Though my lunch break was delayed, it was unavoidable, given the careful preparations needed for our new product launch. The furniture we're about to release is a bit different from our previous lines, so we're taking extra care to inspect every detail. Recently, a customer got injured at a competing furniture company, so we decided to prioritize safety in our new designs. We've been holding thorough discussions with the team, ensuring that we overlook nothing. For that reason, I found myself immersed in the product documentation, finally taking a break about 30 minutes after the start of lunchtime. Rubbing my tired shoulders from a long day's work, I stepped away from my desk and headed toward my locker to grab my bag. Opening it, I pulled out the lunchbox my wife, Monica, had packed for me. Today's meal was the minced meat rice I'd been looking forward to, but when I opened the lid, it was empty. Huh, that's odd. I murmured to myself, scratching my head. Monica may be calm now, but I've heard stories of her wild high school days, swinging around a baseball bat. Still, she's been making lunch every day since she was young, so her lunches are always high quality. Her cooking skills, developed over the years, have only improved as she's taken on the challenge of feeding our growing kids. And every dish she makes is delicious. This time, though, it seems she accidentally grabbed an empty lunchbox. With 6 kids to look after, this sort of thing happens from time to time. So, I quickly decided not to fuss over it and planned to eat out instead. As I headed to the company entrance, I saw Monica coming toward me. It seemed she'd had some shopping planned nearby and came to drop off my lunch while she was out. Honey, I was planning to shop at the department store near your office, so I brought this for you. Sorry about the mix-up. Here's your minced meat rice. The lunchbox handed to me is wrapped in a drawstring bag made from patchwork quilt fabric. It was a bit rough-looking, probably because she'd just started this new hobby. Our kids are all quite rambunctious, so without sewing skills, their clothes would quickly wear out and become unusable. That's why she has been working hard to improve her sewing skills, even though she finds it challenging. Thanks for going out of your way. Looks like you put some extra thought into your outfit today, too. Thanking her, I took the lunchbox and noticed her outfit. She loves distressed jeans and always wears them when she's in the mood to dress up. Today is no exception. She's wearing a jacket made of ripped denim. Perhaps to match, the tote bag on her arm is also denim, with noticeable fraying. It's handmade by Monica, not store-bought, so even an amateur could tell the stitching is a bit rough. I may be getting older, but I still want to dress up now and then. Wearing this stuff reminds me of high school. It makes me feel young again. Your wild days, huh? I remember you saying you wore ripped jeans back then too. Age doesn't matter when it comes to style, and it suits you well. You look younger than your years. Hee hee, thank you. My indirect compliment seemed to please her, and she did a quick spin to show off her outfit. Watching her, I heard snickering from a distance. Look at those poor folks, acting all excited. Can't believe they're chatting away in those raggedy clothes. I'd die of embarrassment walking around like that. Can you believe people that poor work at our company? The voice belonged to Rachel, head of the design department. She was decked out in flashy brand-name jewelry and accessories. Though she became department head in her 20s, rumors in the office suggested her rise was due to connections. It seemed she'd misjudged Monica's style. I shot her an annoyed look, but she quickly walked off. Annoyed, I decided to brush it off and continued chatting with Monica, quickly forgetting the incident. A few days later, it was time for our monthly morning assembly. The morning assembly is held in the company courtyard. So those who have arrived place their belongings in their lockers or on their desks and then head back outside. The courtyard is planted with flowers and trees, allowing everyone to enjoy the seasonal nature, which makes it a refreshing alternative to holding the assembly in an indoor meeting room or auditorium. It's much more popular than indoor assemblies. Although it was autumn, the temperature was still warm, so I made sure to hydrate before heading out. Usually, our president leads the assembly, but today I was scheduled to give a short address as chairman. While waiting outside, I noticed Noah approaching and calling out to me. "Good to see you, Mr. Kirk. Hasn't been that long, has it?" We exchanged a bit of small talk, but I noticed he looked pale. Worried, I asked him, "Are you all right?" "You don't have to attend the assembly if you're not feeling up to it. I'll be fine. I am a bit tired, but I'm used to it." Lately, though, Rachel's been on my case about a lot of things. It seemed like he might be dealing with exhaustion from the stress. Looking closely at Noah's face, I could see dark circles under his eyes. He kept insisting he was fine, but I didn't want to take any risks. Maybe, as chairman, I should insist he take a break. But before I could make a decision, our conversation shifted. "By the way, isn't the meeting about the new product coming up soon?" "Yes, it is. Since this launch is different from our usual products, it's taken a bit longer. The head of the design department, Rachel, always attends those meetings. I apologize if she causes any trouble. She's determined to make herself the center of attention again." I recalled the look on Rachel's face at the entrance the other day. Her remarks toward my wife were unforgivable, but for now, I decided to set that aside. Some employees have questionable personalities yet do their jobs well. I wondered which side she fell on. Dressed in flashy brand name items, she certainly seemed to crave attention. I wish someone in our department could stand up to her, but it's not that easy. It's tough to speak up to a superior. That's just how it is sometimes. As I watched Noah's worried expression, the subject of our conversation appeared. "EW. Isn't that the poor woman's husband? Don't come near me, I might catch your poverty." The one who spoke in a high-pitched voice was Rachel, sweating and looking hot. She cast a look full of disgust in my direction, pinching her nose and gesturing as if to shoo me away. It seemed she genuinely despised people she saw as poor, casting a contemptuous glance my way. To be so openly hateful toward those less fortunate. It's already September, and it's still so hot. Dabbing her forehead with a designer handkerchief, she seemed to get an idea, her expression changing. Rachel spoke those words to me, struggling to hold back a sly grin. "Go buy coffee for everyone." Rachel pulled out her coin purse and threw something at me. It was a handful of $1 coins. It wasn't enough to cover drinks for everyone here, but that clearly didn't matter to her. She just wanted to humiliate me. "You're poor, aren't you? Feel free to keep a few for yourself. Think of it as a little charity from someone wealthy." At that moment, the entire crowd fell silent and everyone froze. In the tense quiet, Noah was the first to break the silence. "That's out of line, Rachel." "Huh? What are you talking about?" Noah, his face pale, glanced at me and then spoke to Rachel. "That man is our chairman. He oversees our company and the entire group." "Impossible. I know for a fact he's just a poor nobody." Rachel pointed at me and laughed, but the people around her started to look worried, some even sweating nervously as they addressed her. "Rachel, how could you say such a thing to Mr. Kirk? Throwing coins at someone is completely unacceptable." The murmurs grew louder, and it was clear the assembly was now completely derailed. What's wrong with you all? Are you trying to trick me or something? Not wanting to waste more time on her, a few employees stepped forward, bowing their heads apologetically. I shifted my gaze away from Rachel to address them. I'm concerned about her, but I also need to reassure them, as they seem overly worried about me. Before settling into my current role as chairman, I had experience working as president. During that time, I was known for my strict approach, and I always addressed any lapses in workplace conduct. So perhaps that's why they seem to be a bit intimidated. Choosing my words carefully, I spoke up to calm them. I don't have any issues with any of you except for Rachel. So, please try not to feel so tense. Even so, the atmosphere didn't fully relax. As I scratched my head, wondering what else I could say, Noah spoke up, sensing the situation. Excuse me, sir. Would you mind stepping aside with me for a private conversation? Encouraged by Noah, I moved away from the group gathered for the morning meeting. With my departure, the employees who had been visibly tense moments earlier seemed to relax just a little. I couldn't help but feel grateful for Noah's assistance. He then began to explain the details of the situation to me. Since Noah worked in the same department as Rachel, hearing the story directly from someone knowledgeable was incredibly helpful. Mr. Kirk, I apologize if Rachel said anything offensive. She was only recently promoted to manager through connections and might be a bit out of touch with company matters. She didn't know you were the chairman. Although, of course, her comments would be unacceptable from anyone in the company. No worries. I understand. To be honest, I did feel slightly annoyed, but showing it wouldn't be fitting for a chairman. So I kept a friendly smile and handled it calmly. My approach to situations like this likely stems from my wife, Monica, who was known as a tough leader in her youth. Monica, who had a reputation for keeping a firm handle on the neighborhood troublemakers, never let her emotions show, maintaining a strict tone as a leader. I'd listened to her stories over the years and have adopted some of those strategies now that I'm in a leadership role myself. Of course, I take a somewhat friendlier approach than she did. Does Rachel usually act like that toward others? Well, yes. Whenever she's unhappy, she tends to throw things nearby at people. Noah hesitated at first but then decided he couldn't defend her anymore, and he shared more details. Apparently, berating colleagues or persistently pointing out mistakes was the least of her behaviors. She was known to mock people struggling financially, even going so far as to take or damage their belongings. Knowing this, I couldn't just ignore it anymore. Rachel would need to face appropriate consequences. What's going on with everyone? Do they actually think he's the chairman? No way. He looked so poor. Confronted by those around her, Rachel seemed bewildered by the reaction. Wait, am I really the bad guy here? Don't look at me like that. You could have told me before I threw those coins. Now what am I supposed to do? It seemed she was finally grasping the severity of the situation. She started breaking into a nervous sweat, staring at me intently. At that moment, Mr. Smith, the company president, arrived. I hadn't noticed the time, but it was already the start of the morning meeting. What's all this fuss? With a dignified, stern expression framed by his graying hair, he glanced around, assessing the scene. Mr. Smith, everyone's saying this person is the chairman. But that can't be true, right? Rachel pointed toward me, her voice trembling as she looked to Mr. Smith for confirmation. He cast a look of exasperation in her direction. What an obvious thing to ask, Rachel. Yes, of course. My apologies. There's no way this poor-looking guy could be the... He is absolutely, without a doubt, the chairman. Didn't you recognize Mr. Kirk? Realizing the truth mid-sentence, Rachel looked utterly shocked, her words suddenly stopping. Leaving her standing there frozen, Mr. Smith invited me to proceed with the morning meeting. In any case, Mr. Kirk, let's get started with the meeting. We can't keep everyone waiting. Understood. With Mr. Smith's words, the employees near Rachel began to disperse. Watching this, I made my way toward the platform prepared for the meeting. Stunned, Rachel wandered away, not participating in the meeting, her steps unsteady. From then on, her position in the company weakened. Colleagues from other departments gave her cold looks, distancing themselves from her. The daily strain seemed to wear her down. Eventually, Rachel called me with a faint voice, apologizing. There's no way my phone number as chairman would be accessible to regular employees, so I wonder how she found it. Maybe she used some connections to get it from someone. Sitting in my office, I answered her call, considering what to do as I listened to her voice. What's this about? It's not every day that an employee calls the chairman directly. You certainly have initiative. For now, I asked her what she thought of her recent behavior. I thought I should apologize as quickly as possible. I knew it was inappropriate, but I felt I had to reach out to you. The voice coming through sounded tearful, as if she were genuinely remorseful. While I still hadn't decided on the disciplinary action to take, I thought it might be wise to probe a bit more to understand her perspective. I'm truly sorry. I'm reflecting on my actions. Could you please say something to the other employees on my behalf? It was good to hear her apologize, but I sensed that her self-centered thinking hadn't entirely disappeared. As the head of the design department, it's unacceptable for others to spread disrespectful rumors or make mocking remarks toward me. It disrupts the company's decorum. Listening to her indignant tone, I let out a sigh. She did have a point, but I couldn't help seeing her as someone who clings to authority she doesn't truly possess. What exactly do you want me to do? Oh, it's simple, really. I'll provide a list of names, and I'd like you to reprimand them directly. Certainly, someone who has sincerely apologized shouldn't be subject to harassment, and it's my responsibility to protect dedicated employees. However, my years of experience were telling me something. She was only thinking about herself. I remember having a boss like her back when I was just starting out in my career. That person would often pick on me, finding faults in almost everything I did as a colleague. When I asked why he behaved that way, he would go on about it being for the company or for maintaining order, but in the end, he were simply trying to dominate others for his own satisfaction. For now, I'd need to set a small trap to get to the truth about Rachel's intentions. I understand what you're asking. Oh, thank you so much. But first, I need your assistance with something. Would you be able to join the meeting on the new products? Of course. If you need my expertise, I'd be happy to help. After hanging up the phone, I took out my planner to check my schedule. The day of the meeting was only a few days away. I planned to carefully observe her true nature during that time. When Rachel arrived at the conference room a few days later, she looked overly confident, clearly misunderstanding her role here. Leave it to me, Mr. Kirk. As head of the design department, I'll make sure to provide valuable input for you. She spoke to me in a familiar tone, unaware she was under scrutiny. As the meeting time approached, a large screen was set up at the front of the room, displaying the materials for discussion. Nearby employees began whispering to each other. What do you think will happen in this meeting? We'd narrowed it down to 3 options, but Rachel insisted on adding 2 more. Those extra ones don't even meet usability standards. Though Rachel, seated further away, didn't hear this, I caught every word. She'll be upset if her picks aren't chosen, especially with you working in her department and, given your situation. Yeah, my family isn't well off. I just hope she doesn't take it out on us afterward. She's pretty harsh on anyone struggling financially. Her tearful apology was clearly a sham, and it was obvious she hadn't genuinely reflected on her behavior. As the meeting began, each product concept was displayed on the screen. These pieces of furniture were designed with greater attention to safety than ever before. Recently, there was an accident involving furniture at another company, so we're taking extra care with safety measures. While most designs showed thoughtful safety features, 2 were excessively adorned with flashy decorations and had no regard for safety. Glancing at Rachel as these 2 designs were discussed, her self-satisfied expression confirmed her involvement. I couldn't judge just by appearances, so I listened closely to each product's description. In the end, we narrowed the choices down to 3, with the overly ornate ones removed from consideration. Naturally, Rachel looked dissatisfied with this outcome. If I may, I'd like Rachel to share her thoughts on the final 3 choices. Feeling a bit apologetic for taking up extra time, I asked everyone for permission. The other employees nodded, showing their understanding. I was grateful for their patience. What do you think of the final 3 products, Rachel? This was an ideal opportunity to reveal her true intentions, so I invited her to speak. She stood up eagerly, her face lighting up as if she'd been waiting for this moment. These kinds of items don't suit our company at all. You can tell a lot about the backgrounds of the people who came up with these designs. The products I recommended are far superior. Pointing proudly at the screen displaying the remaining options, she wore a triumphant expression. It must have been thought up by some unimaginative, poor person. Clearly, they didn't have a proper education. Rachel didn't realize how off-base her comments were. This meeting was intended to discuss our upcoming products, not to criticize people's backgrounds. In this short time, it became clear that she lacked the qualifications to be a department head. Furthermore, her character issues made her wholly unfit for a leadership role. Excuse me, but we're on a tight schedule. About 10 minutes into Rachel's speech, the male employee in charge of moderating speaks up with a somewhat puzzled expression. Rachel glared at him sharply. How rude to interrupt me. I'm someone personally chosen by Mr. Kirk. Any disrespect toward me is the same as disrespecting him. Rachel, interrupted mid-sentence, lets out an angry shout with a furious expression. It's intense enough that the man opposite her, breaking into a cold sweat, reflexively mutters an apology with a nervous sorry. In truth, his action wasn't wrong, he'd just been overwhelmed by her aggression. Sensing it was time to step in, I walked over to Rachel and placed a hand on her shoulder. She mistakenly assumed I was about to support her. Her confident expression quickly crumbled as I spoke. Rachel, I need you to leave this meeting room immediately. With a cold tone, I nodded toward the door. What? She froze, seemingly unable to process what I'd said. After a few seconds, she looked around, realizing she was indeed the one being addressed. You don't have the qualifications to be part of this meeting. Why not? I kept my expression stern as I addressed her. You brought up irrelevant topics that have nothing to do with our products. We don't need that here. I don't understand. I thought I was saying things in the company's best interests. To her, it probably looked like I'd suddenly turned against her. I didn't say anything unreasonable. You claim to be working for the company, yet extended the meeting unnecessarily. This is a place to discuss our new products, not the people who create them. But I'm not wrong. These 3 products don't suit our brand, they're too focused on safety and lack elegance. Listening to her, I glanced at the products displayed on the screen. They are certainly all plain pieces of furniture with unremarkable designs. Since safety is a priority, the designs are intentionally understated and may not catch the eye. However, this product concept focuses on prioritizing people's safety, so that's exactly as it should be. Who asked you to ignore the product concept and push your personal agenda? As I spoke, glaring at her, Rachel's face turned pale, and she began to tremble. I was invited by you to this meeting. I assumed you agreed with my opinions. You were invited to show that you had reflected on your behavior. I didn't expect everything to have changed, but I didn't anticipate hearing such biased remarks. In that moment, Rachel seemed to realize her mistake. Her strength left her, and she slumped to the floor. In shock, she looked around the room for support, but found none. Realizing her position, she covered her face with her hands and began to cry. I won't tolerate your behavior of looking down on others based on their background. You'll face disciplinary action, including your recent actions. So be prepared to accept it. Today, I decided her demotion right here and now. Shortly afterward, her demotion was made official. The new design department head was reportedly getting along well with the team. Noah shared, I'd been entrusted with more responsibilities, and work is progressing more smoothly now. Rachel complained to various executives about her demotion, but no one supported her. Apparently, she appealed to the person who hired her, but it was to no avail. That's because I had ordered an investigation into the HR manager who appointed Rachel as the department head, ultimately leading to his dismissal. Eventually, Rachel found it unbearable to continue facing the cold stares of everyone in the company. A month after the incident in the conference room, Rachel left the company. Since her departure, the design department under its new head has been achieving better results than ever. I frequently hear how much the atmosphere in the department has improved. This positive shift seems to be driving our company's revenue upward as well. At this rate, we should be able to increase employees' salaries soon. It looks like I'll also be able to take the whole family on our planned family vacation this year. Currently, I'm making plans, considering places like France and the UK that our eldest daughter and son have been wanting to visit. Our family dream is to go on a world tour together one day. To make that dream a reality, I'll need to keep working hard and bringing in revenue. Thinking of all this, I wrapped up my work and headed to my lunch break. After chatting briefly with some senior staff to get a feel for the company's current atmosphere, I opened my lunchbox only to find it empty once again. It seemed Monica had forgotten to pack it. Just as I sighed, a message arrived from my wife titled, "Sorry." In the message, she'd written the following: "I'll bring your lunch over soon, so please wait just a little bit. Oh, by the way, I lent Bat to the neighborhood kids, they're putting on a play. Apparently, they'll use it for their school festival in 3 months. Let's go see it if we get the chance." I couldn't help but wonder what kind of play it is, feeling a mix of curiosity and amusement. Recently, Monica has been busy with the kids, so maybe a date together at the festival would be a nice break for her. With renewed determination to work hard and plan something for us, I refocused on my day. While reviewing my emails and missed calls, I noticed a few from Rachel. Before she left the company, she sent a string of emails, presumably in one last attempt to cause trouble. I hadn't bothered to read them. I wondered where she was and what she was doing now. I'd heard rumors that she'd been keeping to herself at home. In hindsight, I felt relieved this situation caught my attention when it did. If we'd allowed the issues in the design department to persist, it could have escalated even further. After going through this experience, I resolved once again to keep a vigilant eye on the company as its chairman, ensuring a positive work environment for everyone. You've got some nerve to defy me. Out of nowhere, Stephen suddenly grabbed a beer roughly. I'll treat a poor soul like you to a drink. In that moment, he dumped the beer over Ruby's head. My name is Ryan Nelson. I'm 40 years old this year, and I usually live a happy life with my wife and son. My sister Ruby lives nearby, and even when I'm busy with work, she always looks out for my wife and son. To me, she's more than just a sister, she's been like a mother, so I'm grateful she gets along with my family. When I was still a toddler, our parents divorced, and Ruby and I were raised by our mother. But she passed away in an accident when I was in elementary school, and Ruby took care of me after that. That night, when our mother died, our home was filled with sadness and uncertainty. I was too young to understand, so I just cried, and Ruby, with tears in her eyes, held me close. Ryan, from now on, it'll just be the two of us. Let's stay strong. She said that, trying her best to encourage me. Ruby was still just a high school student back then. She juggled housework, taking care of me, and keeping up with her studies. Every morning, she'd wake up early to make breakfast, send me off to school, and then head to her own classes. As soon as she got back from school, she'd start making dinner and help me with my homework. You've got to do your homework properly, Ryan, she'd say, while never neglecting her own studies. One day, I came home crying because something bad had happened at school, and she hugged me gently to comfort me. Ryan, it's okay. I'm always here for you. She even talked to my teachers and did everything she could to solve my problems. Watching her, I was struck by how strong and kind she was. Every special occasion, she would save up her own money to buy me a present. On my birthday, she'd always manage to get a small cake for me. During summer break, we'd go to the fireworks festival together. As I watched the fireworks light up the night sky, I would smile innocently and say, "They're beautiful, aren't they, sis?" All thanks to her. Yeah, they are, Ryan. Let's keep pushing forward together. Her words reassured me, and I realized just how much of a pillar of support she was for me. After graduating high school, Ruby started working right away and saved up money so I could go to college. Sure, there was some support from child support and our mom's life insurance, but it was mostly thanks to her that I made it through college. I really can't thank her enough. Thank you for putting me through college, sis. I promise I'll pay you back one day. When I said that, she smiled and replied, "The best way you can pay me back is by being happy, Ryan." After I graduated from college, I landed a job at a food company. It's a large company with many subsidiary groups. On my first day as a new employee, I was nervous but full of hope. I'm going to succeed here, no matter what. I made that vow to myself. For my first project, I worked hard with the help of my seniors. I stayed up late preparing documents and practiced my presentations repeatedly. All that effort paid off, and the project was a success. Ryan, great job. When my boss, Keith, praised me, I was filled with a sense of accomplishment. My hard work was recognized, and I even got promoted. During that time, I met my future wife. We first spoke at a company event and gradually grew closer. As we spent more time together, I was captivated by her kindness and strength. Eventually, we got married and had a son. Holding his tiny hand, I felt the responsibility and joy of being a father. Life with my family was filled with happiness every day. On weekends, we'd go on picnics in the park or take family trips. Watching my son grow made me realize how important family truly is. Ruby would always smile happily when she saw us together. Ryan, you've got a great family. I'm really happy, too. Ruby is married now and has kids of her own. It became a tradition for us all to gather together from time to time. Her husband treats me kindly, almost like a real brother. We've been through a lot, but now that both my work and family life are fulfilling, Ruby and I are truly happy. As I was lost in thought, Ruby tapped me on the shoulder. Hey, what are you grinning about? Startled by her voice, I turned around. I was just thinking how lucky and happy I am. She gave a wry smile at my words. That's nice and all, but we've got a dinner meeting with a client coming up, so you'd better stay sharp. You're right, I said, clearing my throat. Ruby and I were on our way to the venue in the car. Ryan, are you nervous about tonight's dinner? She asked, sounding a bit concerned. Yeah, a little. But having you here with me makes me feel a lot more confident. The venue was a fancy Japanese restaurant. We had a dinner meeting with a client tonight. This place has had a great reputation for years. The food's supposed to be amazing, and the atmosphere, too. Ruby said with a smile. The client runs a company that manages cafes and restaurants. I wonder what they'll be like. I asked. Ruby tilted her head thoughtfully. I haven't met them yet, so I'm not sure. But let's hope they're good people. We were in talks to develop a limited-time menu for their cafes. I'm really excited about working on the new menu. I'm sure we'll come up with something great. Ruby encouraged me. This would be my first time working with them, so tonight's dinner was an opportunity to build a good relationship. I heard Mr. Knight, the CEO, is coming tonight. You're right, I need to stay focused. Exactly. Show them what you've got. Feeling inspired by her words, I sat in the car, reaffirming my determination as we headed to the restaurant. Thanks, sis. Or rather, President Mitchell. I corrected myself, switching from casual to business mode. Ruby is here today, not as family, but as a business associate. Since it's a professional setting today, make sure you're on top of things, she said with a smile. Ruby is deeply involved in our business as well. In fact, she runs a large farm and serves as its head. After she sent me off to college, she began dedicating herself to her dream of managing a farm. She started learning agriculture from scratch, beginning with a small plot of land and gradually expanding the operation. Ryan, look at this. Don't these tomatoes look delicious? She proudly showed me the freshly harvested vegetables. At first, it was nothing but hardship. Crops were destroyed by typhoons, and pests were a constant issue. But Ruby never gave up. It'll be okay. Next time will be better, she would say, heading out to the fields day after day to keep working. Your farm has really made a name for itself lately. It was even featured in a magazine, I said, and she modestly replied, well, it's thanks to everyone's support. You're working hard too, so I can't afford to slack off. She supplies our company with vegetables and fruits, and her produce has earned a great reputation. Everyone at the company loves your vegetables. They say they're delicious, and the employees are really happy about it. For this joint project, her branded vegetables are absolutely essential. We can't pull off this menu without your vegetables, so I'm counting on you. That's why she's joining us for the meeting today. Of course, I'll give it my all, she said. Although I usually call her by her last name at work, being outside the office made me let my guard down. Sis, I really appreciate everything. It's because of you that I've been able to succeed. She blushed a little but responded in a gentle voice. What are you being so formal for? We're family. Helping each other is just natural. Her words made me feel deeply grateful once again. In both work and personal life, Ruby is a huge support for me. But today is business, so we need to switch to work mode. Yeah, you're right. President Mitchell, I look forward to working with you. I corrected my tone, getting back into the business mindset. Let's do our best, she said confidently, and I nodded firmly. We've arrived. Thank you. I thanked David from sales, who had driven us, and we stepped out of the car. The hostess of the restaurant greeted us and showed us to our room. This is where the dinner is, huh? It's got a nice atmosphere, Ruby said, smiling. Yeah. Time to give it my best, I replied, unable to hide my nervousness. As we entered the room, the employees from the client company welcomed us. I was just about to pull out my business card and start the introductions when an irritated voice interrupted. You're pretty late, aren't you? Turning toward the voice, I saw a man seated at the head of the table, glaring at us with a flushed face. The person looks to be in his late 30s. He definitely appears to be the youngest among the group. Although we had arrived ahead of schedule, it seemed they had gotten here even earlier. To my surprise, he had already started drinking. While the other employees hadn't touched their glasses yet, the man at the head of the table had already opened several bottles. My apologies for keeping you waiting. We look forward to working with you today. I bowed my head, and Ruby followed suit with her own greeting. My name is Ruby Mitchell. It's a pleasure to meet you. However, the man snorted in annoyance, giving us a cold glare. Making an important client wait this long? Are you all mocking us? And then you bring along a kid, an old woman, and this unimpressive-looking guy. I guess we're being taken lightly. He scoffed, pointing at me, Ruby, and David in turn, laughing derisively. I've often been told I look younger than my age, which has always been a bit of a sore spot for me. But this was the first time someone younger than me had called me a kid to my face. As Ruby and I stood silently, trying to suppress our frustration, David nervously spoke up. We were told that Mr. Knight, the president, would be joining us today. Huh? What, am I not good enough for you? My father's retired, and I just took over as president. I'm the one who's supposed to be here, got it? Ruby responded calmly. We were informed that he would be attending, so we prepared accordingly. I apologize if we've kept you waiting. I chimed in as well. We thought we were arriving a bit early, but I appreciate you getting here even earlier. The man still looked displeased. Even so, you're late. But whatever, sit down already. He tossed his business card toward us carelessly. I picked it up and, as expected, it listed his title and name. It seemed this man's name was Stephen. One of the employees, who had been sitting quietly, hesitantly spoke up. Actually, the previous president has had back problems, and just recently handed things over to his son, Stephen. We were going to notify you, but Stephen insisted it wasn't necessary. Though it was my first time meeting this Stephen, it was clear that he had a difficult personality. I see, that must have been tough, Ruby replied, still composed. However, a quick heads up would have made things go a bit smoother. I added my own thoughts. Stephen laughed through his nose. No need for a heads up. I'm the president now, that should be enough for you. Even in this tense situation, I kept my composure, smiling as I politely introduced myself and bowed to Stephen and the others. But before I could state my full name and title, Stephen interrupted again. Ah, that's enough. As long as I know your name. I bet it's not much of a title anyway. And what about the old woman over there? She looks pretty useless, what does she do? My fists clenched involuntarily. What is with this rude man? Sis, stay calm. I whispered to Ruby, trying to keep my cool. If he only cared about knowing our names, then so be it. He'd regret his ignorance later when he learned my position. I was sure of that. We're all equals in this meeting. Please show us the respect we deserve. Ruby responded firmly, not backing down. Stephen went silent for a moment, but then stifled a laugh. Equals? Well, whatever. Let's see what you've got. Entertain me, show me what you're worth. Suppressing my anger, I took a deep breath and continued. Thank you for the opportunity. We look forward to working with you. Despite his crude behavior, I wondered if Stephen really understood who he was dealing with. Even if he was drunk, he should have known at least a little about our company. Could it be that he came here completely unprepared? Sensing my discomfort, Ruby lightly taps my back where no one can see. Ryan, you'll be fine. Stay calm. She whispered softly. Her words helped settle my nerves a bit. I couldn't afford to lose my composure over Stephen's attitude. My name is Ruby Mitchell, and I run the farm. I've been invited here today because my branded vegetables are a key component of the joint project we're discussing. Thanks to Ruby's calm and professional demeanor, the atmosphere in the room began to ease slightly. I steeled myself, ready to face this situation alongside Ruby. Oh yeah, my old man did mention something about that. He said your vegetables were so good, he'd love to have them supplied to us. Stephen said with a sly grin. We're honored to hear that. We take great pride in growing our produce. Ruby responded calmly. Sure, using good veggies is important, but let's see if you can prove you're worth it. Stephen added with a smirk. Determined, I replied, we'll do our best to meet your expectations. Ruby nodded and added firmly, let's work together to create something truly special. Stephen paused for a moment, then smiled again, I'll be looking forward to it. How about this? Let's make a deal. You should be grateful, old lady, getting a contract with us would be a lucky break for you, right? I'm sorry, but Ms. Mitchell's farm is under an exclusive contract with us. David immediately interjected, rejecting Stephen's offer. Ruby and I both nodded in agreement, and Stephen's face twisted in annoyance. Ha! I'm doing this poor old woman a favor here. You low-level employees should just shut up. I couldn't understand why Stephen assumed Ruby was poor, knowing nothing about her. And calling us low-level employees. That's incredibly disrespectful. I found myself shouting before I could stop. Oh, so someone who isn't even part of this company dares to talk back to me? Stephen, clearly drunk, glared at me with bloodshot eyes. Just as I was about to retort, Ruby stepped in, her voice steady and composed. We appreciate your offer, but we must decline. Our vegetables deserve better than to be sold to a company run by someone as rude as you. I won't let our precious produce be sent off to such a place. Stephen stood there, stunned for a moment, visibly trembling. What do you mean by that? His voice shook as he demanded an explanation. Just what I said. Our vegetables are of the highest quality, and we only work with those who appreciate that. Ruby replied calmly, unwavering in her stance. Stephen's face turned red with anger. How dare you talk to me like that? You'll regret this. Though my fists clenched again in anger, I took a deep breath, trying to stay composed. Sis, that's enough. Let's go, I said, giving her a look to signal it was time to leave. Yes, there's no point in staying here any longer. We were about to leave the place. Stephen stands up. Stephen, please calm down. His employees pleaded, trying to restrain him, but he wouldn't listen. You think you can act high and mighty? Who do you think you are? A poor nobody trying to defy someone as rich as me, huh? You've got guts. Suddenly, Stephen grabbed a beer bottle roughly. Let me treat you poor folks to some beer, he said, and in an instant, he poured the beer over Ruby's head. Ah! I tried to shield her, but I wasn't quick enough. The room fell silent, the tension thick in the air. Sis, are you okay? I quickly pulled a towel from my bag and handed it to her. Though she tried to remain calm, tears welled up in her eyes. I'm fine, Ryan. Don't worry. I felt a surge of anger rising within me, but I took a deep breath, trying to appear calm. Stephen's reckless action showed just how thoughtless and short-tempered he was. For a brief moment, it seemed like he realized what he had done, but still, no apology came. I won't tolerate any more of this disrespect. As I made my declaration, everyone in the room tensed up, watching the situation unfold. Stephen's face was a mix of surprise and anger. His subordinates were also flustered, clearly unsure of how to respond. Despite his nervous glances around the room, Stephen tried to maintain his bravado, snorting as he spoke to Ruby. Ha, how's that taste, poor woman? I'm sure you get the message now. You don't belong here. Why don't you and that useless guy just head home? His words froze the entire room. The contract is over. I muttered quietly, turning to leave. Ryan, wait. Ruby grabbed my arm, stopping me. We can't end it like this. Her voice was firm, and I stopped in my tracks. Stephen, your behavior is unacceptable, Ruby said, standing tall. We didn't come here to be treated with such disrespect. The room fell silent as everyone listened to her words. Who do you think you are, acting all high and mighty? What do you even know? Stephen spat back, but everyone in the room was now staring at him with cold, disapproving eyes. I suppressed my anger and allowed a small smile to play on my lips. Oh, I know plenty. Enough to recognize how low your character is. You're the one who doesn't belong here. So, who are you with again? Which company do you represent? At my question, Stephen burst out laughing, but his laughter was strained. He must have realized the seriousness of what he had done and was surely shaken. Ha! You must have a terrible memory, poor man. I'm Stephen, the president of the company that does business with your firm. What's the point of this question? And what's with your tone? If you keep this up, I'll... His subordinates were desperately trying to restrain him, clearly struggling to keep him from causing more damage. Some of them had already resigned themselves to the situation, standing silently as if they knew it was too late. I cut him off, maintaining my calm smile. I see. So you do understand your position as president. Good to know. Well, then, we'll be taking our leave. Oh, and be sure to inform your father that our joint project is no longer happening. I said to Ruby, let's go. She was deeply shocked by the fact that she had been drenched in beer. Tears welled up in her eyes, and her clothes were soaked, but she still managed to stay strong. By the way, I didn't get a chance to introduce myself properly earlier, I said, handing Stephen my business card. On it, my full title was clearly written. Our company operates over 100 stores nationwide. And I'm the president of the headquarters. Though I had only recently taken over, my position was legitimate. In an instant, Stephen's face went pale. This can't be real, he muttered in a trembling voice. The subordinates stand frozen like statues, letting out deep sighs. It's clear they knew who I was. A quick look at the company's website would show both my picture and title. Under normal circumstances, anyone would have prepared for a meeting like this, knowing exactly who they were dealing with. But judging by Stephen's behavior, they had given up trying to stop him halfway through. I could understand that, but it was still strange. Not only did they fail to stop him, but none of them even attempted to apologize for his insults and violence. This company clearly had deeper issues. Maybe they were too scared of Stephen to act. Either way, it was an unbelievable situation. What's going on? Even though he was drunk, he must have realized the seriousness of the situation. Stephen stood there trembling. Wait, please. He called after us, but we ignored him as we left the restaurant. With my arm gently around Ruby's shoulders, we stepped outside into the cold night air. Sis, are you okay? I asked, concerned. Yeah, thank you. I'm sorry, don't worry about me, she said, though her voice trembled. I drove her home right after we left the restaurant. Take tomorrow off and rest, I told her as we sat in the car. Thanks, Ryan. But I'll be fine, don't worry, she replied with a brave smile, though I could see the exhaustion in her eyes. More than anything, I was worried about how deeply the incident had affected her. Today, she was out in the fields working at her farm, but I planned to check on her later to make sure she was all right. The next day, I went to the office as usual. Mr. Nelson, sorry to interrupt, but you have visitors. Alice, my secretary, informed me as I was deep in thought. Visitors? I don't have any appointments at this time, I said, puzzled. Alice then told me that Stephen and his father had come to see me. Ah, I see. It's about yesterday. I sighed, realizing what it was about. They were probably here to apologize. I couldn't just ignore them completely. All right, show them in, I said, standing up and instructing Alice to join me in the meeting. She nodded and led the night father and son to my office. I'll show them into the president's office now, Alice said politely as she guided them. As soon as they entered the room, both father and son immediately bowed to the floor, pressing their foreheads down in apology. My son's behavior was absolutely unacceptable. We are terribly sorry. They repeated their apologies with their heads to the floor. We knew how large your company was, but we never expected the president of the main office himself to come. Stephen began to make excuses, but I shook my head. It was planned for the company presidents to meet and introduce themselves. Since we'll be working together, I wanted to have a proper discussion. But as you saw, things ended up the way they did. I spoke in a calm but firm tone. Your actions were completely unacceptable. Stephen's father, with tears in his eyes, once again bowed deeply, continuing his apologies. I am truly, truly sorry. Please, won't you give us one more chance? Stephen, his head still lowered, took a deep breath and finally spoke. I sincerely apologize for my rude behavior, Please forgive me. I stared at the two of them in silence for a while, then let out a deep sigh. Yesterday was deeply regrettable. But this issue cannot be resolved so easily. I looked at both of them with a stern gaze. First, I need to hear a proper apology from Stephen directly to Ruby. Stephen's father turned toward him, and with a trembling voice, Stephen spoke again. I'm really sorry, to your sister as well. I entrusted my son with running the company due to my worsening back issues, and I trusted him to communicate with all of you properly. I never imagined he would act so disgracefully. I deeply apologize. My son will face appropriate consequences for his actions. Please, I ask that you reconsider continuing our business relationship. Hearing his father's words, Stephen's eyes widened in shock. What? Father, you can't be serious. Stephen's father seems desperate to at least keep the business on track. It appears that continuing the deal is more important to him than offering an apology. I sighed in exasperation. It seems you don't understand the gravity of the situation. Is continuing the business really all that matters to you? At my words, his father bowed his head again. No, of course not. But please, give us one more chance. Stephen's face was a mix of panic and anger. Dad, I gave Stephen a stern look. Do you even understand how serious yesterday's incident was? Stephen looked down, speechless. Forget the business deal for now. First, you need to reflect on your own actions. I declared firmly. I have no intention of changing my mind. I will be filing a report regarding the assault. There were many witnesses to your son's actions. Among the witnesses were not just us and Stephen's subordinates, but also the staff at the restaurant. They were concerned, especially after seeing the state of Ruby. When Stephen heard the words "file a report," his face went pale, and he let out a frantic cry. What? Wait a minute, a report? His face turned a sickly shade, filled with panic and fear. You've gotta be kidding me. You're blowing this way out of proportion for something like this. At that moment, his father bowed deeply once again. I deeply apologize, Mr. Nelson. Please reconsider one more time. Your son's behavior is absolutely unacceptable. Further discussion is pointless. His father's face sank into despair at my words. Please, I'm begging you. But I shook my head. My decision is final. Please leave. What the hell? You're making such a big deal over a little spilled beer. And who'd believe someone like you is actually the president? This feels like a setup. Besides, that woman should have moved out of the way. Fool, shut up. His father quickly stepped in to stop him, but I couldn't help but laugh at Stephen's ridiculous logic. Is that your excuse? I said, smirking coldly. I knew you lacked the awareness of a leader, but I didn't realize it was this bad. Stephen's face flushed red with anger. What? You're saying I'm the one at fault? You're the ones making a big deal out of nothing. In that moment, my expression turned serious and I spoke calmly. You are mistaken if you think you can dismiss me because I appear young. The real issue here is your attitude. Ha! His father, holding his head in his hands, desperately tried to persuade him. Enough, Stephen, be quiet, but Stephen wasn't listening. I won't lose to the likes of you. Stephen kept shouting until the atmosphere in the room had completely frozen over. The woman you insulted, the one you called poor, is someone I deeply care about. She's my family. If Ruby is in danger, of course I will protect her. And if she's insulted, it's only natural to be angry. Am I wrong? When I explained this, Stephen's eyes widened in shock. Yes, I'm standing up for the sister who has always been there for me. She has supported and encouraged me for years. The idea of her being humiliated and having beer poured over her head is something I simply cannot allow. I got married and took over as president from Mr. Kennedy a few years ago. I take pride in my new role, always holding a deep sense of gratitude for Ruby. Without her support, I wouldn't be where I am today. As I reflected on the past, I continued speaking. And another thing, yesterday, Stephen was surrounded by many of his employees, yet none of them acted. They just stood there like statues, silently watching his mood. Despite witnessing numerous outrageous acts, not a single one of them apologized to us. This goes beyond a simple issue of employee training. My voice was cold, echoing through the room. Stephen's face turned red, and he looked down, unable to say anything. Do you really think a company with employees like yours can succeed? I continued. A company is made up of its people. Every individual's actions build the company's reputation. But it seems you don't understand that at all. Stephen's father bowed his head again, tears welling up in his eyes. I am truly sorry. I apologize for my son's disrespect. Stephen, visibly emotional, slammed his fist on the floor and shouted, Damn it! I only took that job because I thought I'd get free food and drinks. This is a disaster. Stephen spat out his words, full of frustration. I sighed again. In any case, I will not change my mind. After all that's happened, your apologies are nothing but empty words. Please leave. Yet, neither Stephen nor his father made any attempt to stand. It was a waste of time. Stephen's father looked at me with desperate, pleading eyes, but I maintained my calm expression. Please leave. I don't want to have anything to do with you anymore. As I said this again, Alice, who had remained silent until now, made a phone call. Moments later, security arrived and escorted Stephen and his father out. What do you think you're doing? We're not finished here. Stephen screamed, but the security guards held him firmly. His father, still bowing deeply with tears in his eyes, led his son out of the president's office. In the silence that followed, the only sound was the soft pouring of tea from Alice as she prepared it. I took a deep breath, trying to calm myself. Good work, Mr. Nelson. Alice spoke quietly. Thank you, you went through a lot as well, I expressed my gratitude to her. Taking a sip of the tea, I reflected on the whole situation. It made me realize the importance of standing firm, no matter how difficult the circumstances. And more than anything, I was certain that I had made the right decision for Ruby's sake. Later, Stephen's father reached out again, asking for reconsideration on the contract and the police report, but I firmly refused. Please, reconsider one more time. His voice was desperate, but I shook my head without hesitation. I'm sorry, but my decision remains unchanged. As promised, I filed the report with the police. There were many witnesses, and further investigations revealed that Stephen had a history of mistreating his subordinates. This wasn't the first time. As the police investigation continued, more disturbing facts came to light. In the end, Stephen received the punishment he deserved. During the trial, Stephen remained silent as the verdict was read. His face showed both regret and fear. Afterward, he formally apologized to Ruby, and we received compensation, cutting all ties with the Knight family. It's finally over. I let out a deep breath. Stephen's company had lost its credibility and faced a wave of contract cancellations. Their reputation in the industry plummeted, and it would be a long road to rebuild their trust, if it was even possible. This is reality. One careless action can lead to losing everything. This is especially true for those in positions of responsibility. And above all, I could never forgive what they did to Ruby. Ruby, who had beer thrown on her, is worried about the deal falling through. No matter how much I told her, don't worry about it, she couldn't help but blame herself. Just like you always care about me, I care about you too, sis. So please, keep smiling. At that moment, Ruby finally gave me a tearful smile. Thank you, Ryan. I'm truly lucky. Her words brought a sense of relief to all of us. Family grows stronger by staying together. I felt that strongly in my heart. I vowed to continue supporting each other as a family, living each day with smiles. When I glanced up at the sky, it was clear and bright, filling me with a renewed sense of hope. Let's keep moving forward together, sis. I whispered this to myself as I took the first step toward our new beginning. If you become the department head, everyone will quit. The office fell silent at Miles's loud outburst. With a smug look on his face, Miles threw his resignation letter onto my desk. Following his lead, the employees standing behind him started tossing their resignation letters one by one, 20 in total. But the moment they heard my words, they all widened their eyes in shock. Thank goodness. This is such a relief. What? Miles's face went blank as he stood there, mouth agape. I slowly looked around at their faces, a calm smile forming on mine. There comes a time in life when you have to figure out what truly matters. Sometimes it's harsh, and it might even lead you down the wrong path, but in the end, it's all up to your own choices. My name is Kieran. I'm a 36-year-old employee working at a small company in the city. Up until now, my life hasn't been particularly eventful, just the usual. I went through high school, then college, and landed a job like everyone else. After getting a few job offers, I ended up choosing my current company based on the salary and the nature of the work. Nothing special. I work in sales and have no particular complaints, just doing my best wherever the company places me. But now, for the first time, I'm faced with a life-changing decision that has left me truly puzzled. And the reason for that is Miles, my coworker, 6 years younger than me. Miles just turned 30 and takes pride in being a graduate of a prestigious university in the city. He's at his peak in terms of learning the ins and outs of the job. As a mid-level employee, he's expected to lead the younger staff, and the company has given him significant responsibilities over the years, hoping for his growth. But that might have inflated his ego beyond reason. Before anyone realized it, Miles had become the kind of troublesome employee who constantly complained about the company. With my skills, I should be making more money. But instead, I barely get any raises, not enough vacation days, and I'm stuck doing boring work. These complaints would come straight to me, his direct supervisor, and I couldn't help but feel annoyed at his sense of entitlement. Though Miles worked hard in his own way, his enthusiasm often backfired, leading to occasional successes but also frequent blunders that erased all his progress. He seemed to think of himself as an elite, but 1 out of every 3 times, he caused some sort of problem. Even though he should have known the standard procedures, he kept adding his own twist to them, which often confused our clients. More than once, he added terms to a contract without prior discussion, telling the client, "This is the better option. You should definitely try it." And each time, it fell on me, his supervisor, to clean up the mess. Miles, I understand your enthusiasm and that you wanted to do something good for the client. But you can't just change the terms without consulting them first. Well, I can't help it if I get a flash of inspiration. I guess someone like me, an elite, can't expect someone like you, just an average employee, to understand. No matter how much I warned him, Miles would just brush it off, seemingly convinced that I was simply jealous of his elite status. Had he been more humble, I might have been able to correct his misguided behavior, but that was too much to hope for. His pride in his prestigious university background had grown so large that he couldn't build good relationships with the other employees. Miles became the leader of a group of co-workers from the same university, where they regularly vented about the company. At the same time, he began to look down on anyone he perceived as having a lesser education, even if they were his seniors. Naturally, Miles and his group became disliked by the rest of the staff, but none of them left the company. Our company was always short-staffed, and even troublesome employees were seen as a necessary evil. Still, despite his cocky attitude, Miles was only 30, and part of me still hoped he would grow and mature. That's why, as his manager, I continued to guide him with patience. As time went on, the younger employees started gaining more skills and soon surpassed Miles in their number of deals. That's when Miles began making snide remarks, as if trying to cut down the younger staff who were standing out more than him. I'm always stuck with the tough projects, while the younger guys get the easy jobs. It's so unfair. He began openly complaining, and the workplace atmosphere kept deteriorating. Even though we were short-staffed, other employees started voicing concerns that it was becoming difficult to work with Miles around. And soon the office started treating him as a problem. At the time, I was the department manager, responsible for handling the complaints from my team, so I did my best to manage the situation, setting up meetings with Miles whenever an issue arose. But Miles never seemed to think he was in the wrong. Even when I gave him firm feedback, he would calmly respond, "If you dislike me that much, I can quit anytime. I've got friends from college who are starting a new company and want me to join as a co-founder." Though I wasn't about to stop him if he really wanted to quit, Miles just laughed it off, never taking my warnings seriously. "I'm fine with quitting, you know. But without me, this company won't function," Miles declared, clearly waiting for me to stop him. And since it was true that losing him would be problematic, it gave me a headache just thinking about it. Our company was severely understaffed, and new recruits were hard to come by. So even an employee like Miles was considered better than no one at all. We were hiring anyone who applied, but the burden of training them slowed things down even more, creating a vicious cycle. Miles was well aware of this situation, which is probably why he knew I couldn't push back too hard. As I, and the rest of the company, wondered how to handle Miles, the inevitable happened. It started when a younger employee landed a new client. This employee had been quiet and unassuming at first, but unlike Miles, he was humble and eager to learn from his seniors. His serious work ethic made him popular with clients, and as a result, he was growing rapidly since joining the company. Finally, he was recognized as the top salesman of the month. We were all proud of his progress and praised him. But the only one who wasn't happy about it was Miles. He only got that job because of favoritism from a longtime client. If I had been in his position, I would have tripled the profits. Miles muttered to himself, grumbling alone. It would have been fine if that's all he did, but he started criticizing the younger employee under the guise of giving him guidance. However, even though the employee was younger, he had more practical experience on the ground. When the junior politely pointed this out, Miles completely lost his temper. "How dare you, a younger employee, talk back to me? You think results alone give you the right to act like this? Miles yelled, and the younger employee could only shrink in fear. I rushed in to break it up, but in the end, the younger employee left the company. Soon after, it became clear from the atmosphere in the company that everyone wished that it had been Miles who quit instead of the talented junior. But Miles, oblivious to his role in all this, was furious, saying, "I went out of my way to guide him, and now it looks like I drove him out. If that's how you're going to treat me, I really will quit." "Are you okay with that?" he demanded, getting in my face. Still, he showed no signs of changing his behavior. With the departure of the promising young employee, I finally realized how serious the situation was. If we kept Miles around, other valuable employees would undoubtedly leave. It was obvious that the company would be better off if Miles quit. But firing someone without a good reason wasn't legally allowed. I was stuck, secretly hoping that Miles would actually resign. Then, one day, the tipping point arrived. It was announced that I had been promoted to department head as part of a company reorganization. As I mentioned before, our company was extremely short-staffed, which was partly why I was able to get promoted in my 30s. But this news only seemed to ignite Miles's competitive spirit. If Kieran can be promoted to department head, then I should be promoted to manager right now. I started hearing rumors that Miles was complaining about this within his own group. I knew trouble was brewing, and sure enough, the next day, Miles and his group of 20 employees showed up at my desk. "What is this all about? Let me get straight to the point. Either promote us or give us a raise now." Miles's loud voice echoed through the office, plunging the room into silence. He glanced around at the quiet room with a smug expression, then arrogantly tossed his resignation letter onto my desk. "If you're going to be department head, we're all quitting. Unless, of course, you accept our demands right now." As if on cue, the other employees began throwing their resignation letters at me as well. They must have thought the company couldn't survive without them. I couldn't believe how foolish they were being. I gathered up the 20 resignation letters, feeling confused as I carefully picked them up. Watching me, Miles sneered and mockingly said, "You'd be in trouble if we all quit, right? So, what are you going to do? If you're smart enough to be promoted to department head, you should know the answer. You're right. If you all left, it would be a huge problem. And I'd definitely be held accountable for my management skills." At my response, Miles and his group exchanged satisfied smiles, nodding to each other as if they'd won. But the next moment, they were stunned, their eyes wide in disbelief at what I said next. "Thank goodness. This is such a relief." "What?" Miles stood there, dumbfounded, his mouth hanging open in disbelief. I calmly looked at their faces and smiled gently. "I'm glad to hear your true feelings. It's unfortunate, but I have to respect your decision." "What? Wait, what are you talking about?" They clearly hadn't expected me to actually accept their resignation letters. Miles, now pale, rushed toward me in a panic. His frantic behavior caused the group behind him to become uneasy. Everyone began to look worried, whispering anxiously among themselves, their faces clouded with uncertainty. Seeing this, I couldn't help but smile to myself, realizing that my hunch had been right. Miles was the only one openly voicing his dissatisfaction with the company. I had suspected that the rest of the group had just been swept up by his momentum, joining him without much thought. Everyone working here knew how short-staffed we were and how hard it was for the company to let anyone go. They probably thought that if Miles's demands were met, they could get promotions and higher pay without much effort. But there's no such thing as getting what you want without putting in the work. Anyone who worked their way up from the bottom, like me, understood that. But Miles and his group, having never faced any major setbacks, had coasted from elite schools into our company based on name recognition alone. They have been living in a world where their selfishness has always been accepted. So they must have joined Miles's rebellion without thinking it through. Now, faced with the reality that their resignation letters might actually be accepted, they were completely panicked. Behind the pale-faced Miles, I could hear the anxious murmurs of his group. Wait, this can't be real, right? This was just supposed to be a negotiation tactic, right? Isn't this common in other countries? Their confusion made me sigh, a mixture of frustration and disbelief. It's true that negotiating for better pay or working conditions had been done before, but it was always through calm, rational discussions. You'd research beforehand, present valid reasons, and then arrange a meeting with the company to discuss a raise. What they were doing, threatening to quit unless their demands were met, had no precedent in our company. I looked at the panicking employees and at Miles, who stood defiantly in front of them, and decided to give them one last chance to negotiate. If any of you want to take back your resignation, now's the time. No one in this company has ever tried this kind of stunt before. That's because there have never been employees as talented as us. Miles, despite his pale complexion, continued with his arrogant claims. But behind him, it was clear his group no longer wanted to stand by him. They were looking down, shifting uneasily, no longer aligned with their leader. I addressed the unsettled group with a gentle tone. Is this really what you want? Are you all resigning because you have genuine grievances with the company? Or are you just following along without thinking? At my words, the other employees clearly showed signs of distress, though Miles continued to glare at me with fiery eyes. After a tense standoff, I let out a small sigh, smiled, and stood up. If you're all so determined, then there's nothing I can do. I'll go ahead and submit your resignation letters. Thank you for your hard work. With that, I turned and headed straight for the president's office. Behind me, I could hear the sounds of a scuffle as some employees tried to chase after me, while others were held back by Miles. I hadn't expected things to go this smoothly. I hurried toward the president's office, trying hard to suppress the laughter that was bubbling up inside me. Firing an employee for company-related reasons is a complicated process. It's difficult to find a justifiable reason for termination, and if things go wrong, it can lead to strained relations or even lawsuits. Even without those risks, there are significant downsides for the company. If it's a company-initiated termination, severance pay increases, and various subsidies can be cut off. The best solution was for Miles to resign voluntarily. But despite his countless threats of, "What would you do if I quit?" Miles had never actually intended to leave. So, this collective resignation stunt was the opportunity one had been waiting for. When I finally explained the situation to the company's president, Mr. Norris, I kept it brief, outlining only the facts. Mr. Norris, holding the 20 resignation letters in his hand, was visibly sweating. Having 20 people submit their resignation letters all at once? The company won't survive like this. Please wait. I believe what happens next will change things. Mr. Norris looked pale, but after hearing my explanation, he gradually regained his color. By the end, he even smiled as he saw me off. In the end, Miles resigned just as he had said he would. He kept complaining about me and the company until the very last moment. I'll find another job right away, no problem. But I bet the company will be in trouble without me, right? You're right. Losing all 20 of you would definitely hurt. When I gave him my honest opinion, Miles smirked and continued. I figured as much. But we're not backing down from our demands. Demands? As I tilted my head in confusion, Miles confidently declared, "If you want us back, you'll have to meet our demands, either a promotion or a raise. Actually, since we'd be coming back after resigning, you'll have to give us both. Are you sure about this? You're really okay with leaving the company and not regretting it?" Despite all the trouble Miles caused, he was still one of my important subordinates. Out of a final sense of consideration, I offered him some advice, but Miles just scoffed at my concern. "I understand that you're upset about losing a talented employee like me, but you're the ones who angered us in the first place," Miles said with a smug grin, puffing out his chest. "You can call us back once you realize how valuable we are. But don't take too long, or another company might snap us up." With a half laugh, Miles threw out his parting words and walked out of the office. Watching his confident figure disappear, I let out a sigh, equal parts exasperated and resigned. 1 week later, I called Miles back to the office. When I saw him again, he was dressed in a sharp suit for some reason, and his voice brimmed with barely contained excitement as he asked, "You finally called. You said you had something to discuss, so what's this about?" "Oh, I just wanted you to pick up your personal belongings. You left some things behind when you resigned." Miles glanced at the box containing his belongings, but he remained still, not moving. He kept looking at me, as if waiting for something more. I prompted him again, "What's the matter? Go ahead and take your things." Is that really all you wanted from me?" Miles stared at me with a bewildered expression, as if he had been tricked. "Yes, that's all. Make sure you get home safely." No. What is going on here?" Clearly frustrated, Miles hastily rummaged through his belongings, as if expecting something else to be hidden in the box. "What? I just didn't want your stuff lying around the office after you left. It needed to be cleared out. That's not what I meant. Isn't there something you need to talk to me about? I thought today was about rehiring me." Seeing Miles approach me in shock, I finally realized he had misunderstood the situation. It seemed Miles believed the company had fallen apart after his resignation. Then I called him back to ask him to return to his old position, or at least, that's what he thought. He must have been so confident that he would be rehired, showing up in a sharp suit. The effort he put into this misunderstanding was almost pitiable. With a firm tone, I told him clearly, "No, we're not hiring right now. We don't have any plans to rehire you." "How can you say that? If you don't rehire me now, I'm really going to move on to another company. And the other 19 employees will join me too. All I have to do is give the word." Miles's face turned red with frustration as he continued to rant. I realized that he wasn't hearing what I was saying. Though it might be hard for him to accept, it was my responsibility as his former supervisor to tell him the truth. "Listen, Miles. The other 19 employees didn't resign." "What?" Miles froze, his eyes widening in shock. No, that can't be right. They all submitted their resignation letters with me. Afterward, they all came back and withdrew their letters. You were the only one who actually resigned." As soon as Miles heard my response, his face flushed with anger. "Those guys betrayed me. It's not so much betrayal as it is that they never really intended to quit in the first place. The truth is, right after I submitted the 20 resignation letters to the president a week ago, 19 of the employees, excluding Miles, came running after me. With sweat beading on their foreheads, They all bowed and begged me to return their resignation letters. "We're so sorry for causing such a fuss. We were just following Miles's lead, and we never really wanted to quit." Seeing their sincere apologies, I turned right back around and returned to the president's office. Leading the 19 employees, who looked thoroughly ashamed, I asked Mr. Norris to give their resignation letters back. When I explained the situation to Miles, he stomped his feet in frustration, clearly upset. How could they do this to me? But without the most talented person, the company is still in trouble, right? Actually, everyone has been covering your workload just fine. In fact, the team has grown more united, and efficiency has even improved. In truth, without Miles constantly complaining and underperforming, the workplace had become much livelier. Everyone had been fed up with Miles's endless grumbling, and now the atmosphere was more positive. Employees were helping each other, stepping in to cover any mistakes, and the office had a more cooperative vibe. As the workplace atmosphere improved, so did the productivity of the employees, and work began to flow more smoothly. Now, a week later, sales have actually increased compared to when Miles was still with us. Positive changes have also appeared in my own work. The time I used to spend dealing with Miles's issues has now been fully redirected to my actual responsibilities. With my focus back on sales, I managed to land the biggest deal of the past year, and the whole company is in a celebratory mood. On top of that, the new employees I've been training have finally gained enough experience to work independently. They've become valuable contributors, working hard for the company. And to top it off, our active recruitment efforts have paid off, bringing in promising new talent. So, really, there's nothing for you to worry about. You can move on and follow your own path, Miles. What? No. Are you saying there's no place for me to return to? I'm offering to come back, and I'm the best employee. Miles's voice trembled, as if he were on the verge of tears, desperately trying to persuade me. But by now, there was no spot for him at the company. If you're as talented as you say, you'll have no problem finding another job. I'm sure you'll land an even better one soon. Well, but I've worked at this company for so long. I thought I could help out as a veteran employee. Clutching the box of his belongings tightly, Miles stubbornly persisted, refusing to give up. Even as he persisted, I remained silent, and eventually, his patience snapped. Collapsing to the floor, Miles suddenly began to vent his frustrations. I never actually wanted to quit the company. I just wanted better conditions. If that's true, then you completely mishandled the negotiation. Waving around a resignation letter and making demands isn't a sincere way to negotiate. At my remark, Miles finally broke down in tears. Grabbing the hem of my suit, he began making ridiculous excuses. It's your fault, Kieran. As my boss, you should have stopped me. You should have tried harder to keep someone like me, who contributed so much to the company. The sheer audacity of his attempt to shift the blame made it clear that Miles had never really respected either the company or me. But no matter what he said, I had no intention of trying to keep him. Don't worry, you're already officially resigned. It seemed Miles finally realized that there wasn't even the slightest chance of being rehired. As he looked up at me, clinging desperately, I gave him one final push to move on. Besides, didn't you say your friend invited you to help start a new company? You should focus on that. For a moment, Miles looked confused, as if he didn't understand what I was saying. Then, as if remembering his own lie, he stood up shakily, his lips trembling. Ah, right, yes, I have a friend. Actually, we're just about to get serious about starting a company. Miles mumbled, his eyes unfocused, as he continued to ramble. He glanced at me one last time, his mouth twisting into a forced smile. Well, I guess it's good timing that I'm leaving. I'm going to join my friend's company, but you're really okay with that? From the way he was acting, it was clear that the story about his friend inviting him was a lie. But I didn't press him on it. Instead, I just said, "Good luck at your new company," and watched as Miles left the office. He's a grown professional, after all. He should be able to take responsibility for his own words. Miles staggered down the hallway and left the company for good. None of the group members who had once rallied around him even bothered to show up or see him off. That alone was proof of Miles's lack of real influence or respect. In the end, there was no news of Miles starting a company with his friend. Instead, reports trickled in that he had been frequenting the employment office, trying desperately to find work. He went to several job interviews but was rejected each time. Apparently, he demanded executive-level treatment, insisting he was a ready-made asset because of his prestigious university degree. As more companies turned him away, he eventually realized his attitude was the problem and accepted a more standard position, only to leave again after trying to negotiate with another resignation threat just 6 months later. Now, he's said to be living in shabby conditions, blowing his money from part-time jobs on gambling. Meanwhile, after Miles left, the company secured an even larger deal from the project I landed, resulting in a major contract that is expected to ensure our stability for the next 10 years. Thanks to that achievement, I'm now set to be promoted to division director. But what brings me the most joy is the positive atmosphere that has returned to the workplace. Instead of criticizing each other, we work together, always striving to do better. With this spirit, we continue to push forward, energized and productive. One of the most surprising and touching moments came when the young employee who had quit because of Miles returned. Apparently, he had been contacted by his former colleagues, who informed him that Miles was gone. When he reached out to me, asking humbly to be rehired, I was so moved that I had tears in my eyes. Today, he has grown into a reliable, senior employee who helps lead the company. I'm grateful we didn't lose such a talented worker. No matter how short-staffed we are, it's important to be careful about who we choose to work with. After all, work isn't something you accomplish alone, it's built through cooperation with your team. Moving forward, I'll continue to protect this positive work environment and make sure I recognize what truly matters. All of this is to make choices that leave no room for regret. With that resolve, I stepped into the office again today, ready for the day ahead.